the title in the program is Technology in Case Writing. It became pretty clear very early on that that was too narrow an aperture. And what we're going to hear from Eric, and I'll introduce both Eric and Nasser in a few minutes, is that he's seeing a dramatic decline in the number of cases that are being written and the number of cases that are being actually used by Babson faculty relative to more interactive digital technology. So we decided we would talk about technology in business education and expand the aperture, okay? I have a lot of different places I teach. I'm teaching 6 courses at Harvard right now, spending a lot of time teaching exec ed courses at Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, Oxford, Babson, and have been doing some exec ed stuff at Brown as well, right? And so I feel like this has been I've been spending my whole career preparing to moderate this panel because I've lived in the tech industry for my whole life. I've spent a lot of time working with ed tech companies as a mentor. I have piloted a lot of ed tech in my classrooms, but I also bring the academic perspective. And so Eric runs the Babson Academic Technology and Innovation Group. Eric, would you please be kind enough to introduce yourself?
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
My name is Eric Palson, Senior Director of Academic Technologies at Babson College. Babson College is located just outside of Boston in Wellesley. It's about 3,500 total population, including the graduate program. Number one in entrepreneurship for 30 years running.
Yeah.
Both in the graduate and undergraduate programs. My team is a group of instructional designers, instructional technologists, graphic and video editors, and look forward to the conversation today. I also teach out of our Operations Information Management Group division, a few different courses, including some technology-based and communication courses.
And Eric's been in this role for 21 years. So he has seen some dramatic changes. I had the pleasure of working with Eric to film an asynchronous AI course about 3 weeks ago in the studio. He's got a real team of pros working with him. And Nasser, who is also a member of the board of the Case Association. Here we go. Even this isn't working. Okay. Yeah.
I'm Senior Lecturer for Technology Management in EBS Business School in Germany. We are located in Frankfurt, and there are about 5 private business schools in Germany, 5 to 6, and we are one of them. We are the oldest one, about 52 years old. And I deal with most of the courses, which are digital transformation, digital strategy, and this is what I bring for you today, a use case on developing how to develop an identity.
Yep, great. So this is a very small group, but I think it'd be really interesting just get a sense as to what people are focused on so we can really tailor the discussion. How many teaching at the undergrad level today? Keep your hands up if you're also teaching at the grad level. Okay. Anybody doing exec ed? Okay. Cool. All right. And this thing's not working. I love it. All right. And then how many of you are using the more traditional long-form cases in your classes today? How many of you have adopted the more compact case, the 4-pager? Okay. How many gravitate toward multimedia cases when you can? Is that a choice for most of you? Just 1 or 2 of you? Yeah? And for those who did not raise their hands, why? Why would you not use these multimedia cases? Because they're very rich and I think far more engaging. So what would be the reason not to use them? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So what, just too much of a challenge? Yeah? Okay, wow. That's disappointing to hear. Yeah, because they're really changed the game. How many use simulations in their work? Okay. And how many would be like sort of very regular multiple simulations per semester? A lot? Okay. That's great. Has anybody found a use case for virtual reality yet? In any of your classes, any of your pedagogy? No? Okay. And then how many are actually actively bringing artificial intelligence into the pedagogy of the course, that you're using it as an enabling tool? Okay. Great. Okay. Pretty good. So, agenda. I'm just going to spend a few minutes setting the context, sharing the big picture, talking about the state of the art in tech today, and some AI-based case studies very quickly. And then I'm going to turn it over to Eric, who's going to walk you through a lot of different content, video-based content, both creation and repurposing or reuse. You know, his own point of view of seeing very much in the real world, the last 5 years especially, a huge movement away from cases and towards simulations and games. There's a teaching innovation fund that Babson has set up and running for about 15 years, and it's kind of a proxy for what's going on in the market, and I think there's some very interesting outcomes there. And he'll summarize. And what's interesting is the juxtaposition between Eric and Nasser is Eric, of course, has the ability to bring a lot of resources to bear on behalf of his stakeholders, his professors. So he's on speed dial, and he likes being on speed dial. But there's also people, and many of you probably fall into the category that Nasser doesn't have that luxury. And so he's needed to then figure out how to do it yourself, right? So he's leveraging a lot of technologies that allow him to build a sim, and he'll demo a sim for us today. Okay, so big picture, there's no question that, you know, as I travel and I teach at a lot of different universities, I see very, very broad distribution of the use of technology in the classroom. Okay, it's stunning how much there is. Okay. Organizations like Babson are pushing the boundaries, right? Wharton is pushing the boundaries today, really pushing the boundaries. So the future is not evenly distributed. How many of you feel like you are working with state-of-the-art technology inside of your classrooms? Anybody have that confidence now? There's my answer. I'll laugh. Okay. That's way better than a no. Thank you. Okay. And so I don't know how many of you know the Gartner Group. The Gartner Group has been around forever. They are able to provide input to technology consumers. They generate typically hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars of fees a year. And when you look at sort of this maturity curve, and they go on and talk about what is the single biggest historical disruption of all time, it is the World Wide Web. And the digital era began 25 years ago. And they compare it as an equivalent to World War II. Right? So we've been living in the digital era for 25 years. And there's still a lot of institutions that haven't got that memo yet, okay? So we've seen historically, and I know there's a few of us in the room with gray hair or limited amounts of hair, okay? And so, you know, I don't know how many go back to the 80s. I was in business school in the late 90s, and we were just starting to see multimedia cases being brought in. And it was a revelation, because when I was studying undergrad, there was nothing like that. So the web then brought a whole new opportunity to kind of go online into the cloud and be able to, you know, run these simulations online that you could access remotely. And how many of you are either using or have colleagues using Capson and MarkStrat? These are probably two of the granddaddies. And how have they done in keeping them current? Would you say that they've kept up with changes in technology, or are they somewhat getting long in the tooth? Because these are big games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just started using Capson, so I'm using their mics.
Okay. Okay. So multimedia cases, for me at least, really made a huge difference. I know that I like to teach these cases, right? It's just three-dimensional storytelling. I don't know any of you who have taught any of these cases, but these are some of the top cases that I love to teach. And a case like Threadless is 20 years old, and I'm notorious for very current content, but it's still an incredibly compelling case because it's all about innovation culture within a very unique industry, and you really get to know the people, and it's a totally different experience in the classroom. And then we have sort of the gold standard in the world of simulations, which is Foreo. And Foreo has a huge catalog of simulations if you've never visited. And some of my favorites are the Food Truck Challenge, which is all about sort of, you know, lean startup and minimum viable product and a lot of experimentation. Crossing the Chasm, which is how do we go from pilot to scale. And then the Mount Everest simulation, which is a massive simulation for leadership, okay? And Eric's going to talk more about Foreo in a few minutes, okay? What's been interesting about being in this ed tech space is, you know, it's not immune from Amara's law, okay? I think for a lot of people, we overestimated the effect of technology in the short run. Eric mentioned at lunch today that, you know, 3 years ago, VR was having a moment. And everybody thought that it's going to completely change education forever. And so far, we haven't seen much of that evidence. So, we're starting to see just an absolute acceleration of technology now in business education. Okay? VR, AR, I think, is still coming. I don't think anybody would say that we can't expect it, but it's definitely under Amar's law today. One of the things that business schools face is this urgent and continuous need to change the curriculum, keep it up to date because it's changing so quickly. And of course, digital technologies allow us to do that with a lot less inertia, a lot less friction. Okay? We're starting to see much more of a trend toward interactive global environments, right? A lot of the exec ed courses I'm teaching now are in Dubai, they're in India, and we're running classes with people from 20, 25, 30 countries at the same time. And they're competing in simulations and games, across a large swath of geography. Okay? So the benefits of technology, right? If we're not training our students to be digitally ready today, then we're doing them a great disservice. So they need to be able to leave and they need to feel comfortable with AI. I know that when I run simulations in my classroom, I never see students more deeply engaged, right? They're leaning into the table, they're standing, behind one another. It's a completely different feeling, okay? And it allows for diverse learning experiences, right? So you've got both visual learners and kinesthetic learners, and these technologies cater to different learners at the same time. So it gives everybody a chance to kind of learn in the way that they're most comfortable. And when you're not using paper-based systems, it's a lot easier to sort of update and refresh without a lot of cost. So let's just talk about education technology and how much that AI is going to affect it. It already is affecting it. Gartner, one more time, one of the least prone to hyperbole and the shiny new thing. And it took them 25 years to sort of position this up here. In year one, Gartner positioned generative AI as on the doorstep of revolutionary in 1 year. Okay, that to me is a very powerful anecdote that they are looking at it with that level of, projection of revolution. So the ed tech industry it's on fire when it comes to AI. This report comes from probably the most active early stage ed tech company in the US. They're called Reach Capital. And this actually is already dated. This comes from December. And at the time, they were tracking 280 different ed tech tools that are AI enabled, right? They break it into 6 categories, primary categories, 15 secondary categories. And they start to break down the number of companies within each of these different categories and the amount of capital that they've raised. And what makes Reach so interesting is they get in at seed or very, very early A stage. So they're seeing a bit of everything right now. Okay, and so personalized learning and support, career and skill development, content creation are kind of the leading poles. And then how many of you use Canvas? So last week I had the privilege of doing a keynote at the annual Canvas Pandemonium event, where they are trying to integrate, they know they have to integrate AI, right? Canvas 15 years ago was a remarkably innovative tool. I'm not sure if too many people would accuse Canvas of being terribly innovative today, okay? They've gotten pretty long in the tooth. And so there's been a lot of frustration on the part of my students around a whole range of different things that I think AI can solve very dramatically. So I had a chance to spend the day with them, and they recognize that they're behind, and they recognize that they're going to have to do something. So this is not just coming to simulations or case studies, it's coming to learning management systems as well. Okay, and then finally AI, right? And if you go out and you start to look at what major B schools are using, right? Far more personalized learning experiences, right? Because it's able to create custom content, personalized content in real time. It's multimodal, so it takes the multimedia component and actually explodes it because of all the different ways you have to interact with a large language model. AI-driven simulations now are incorporating machine learning, so you can actually have a far more dynamic response than what you had in previous simulations, okay? And of course, this is allowing for even quicker real-time feedback than we have seen in the old simulation models of the yesteryear. Now, if you live in Boston, you've seen this before. Okay, this is Starro Drive, which runs along the Charles River in Boston. And this is called getting starroed. Okay, and this is someone not paying attention to the height of their truck. And so Harvard decided they were going to write a very short case, pilot a case called Starroed. And it just came out in March, so it's very new. And what it's really trying to do is it's trying to show students how you can use generative AI to do research on both the problem, right? Why is this happening? Even though there are so many different warnings about please make sure that before you cross under this bridge, you know exactly the height of your truck. And none of the measures have worked. Signage, social media campaigns, fines, other measures. So the question is, how do you do research around the nature of the problem? And then how do you ideate on potential solutions to the problem, which I find students love to do, okay? And finally, we're going to see, I don't know how many of you have been following the work at Wharton, but they are absolutely leading by far what's happening in the world of AI pedagogy. And they've created a startup within Wharton called Wharton Interactive. And they are leaning very heavily into artificial intelligence, and they're building it into games, they're building it into simulations, they're building it into VR and AR, things that we've not seen before, right? So if you at least want to see what the gold standard is, Wharton Interactive, I believe, will be that gold standard based on everything that I've seen from them, some demos and some meetings down in Pennsylvania with the team. Very impressive. All right, and so this course, I'm going to be teaching a course at Babson starting in about 3 weeks. It's a virtual AI course. It's going to run for 3 weeks in June. And if you think AI is of interest to you, this is something that is, it's going to be very experiential. So we're going to form teams around either industry sectors or whatever. And it'll be Babson's first ever certificate course in artificial intelligence. Okay, so I'd be happy to answer more questions about it. And I want to introduce now Eric, who's going to come on and take over the next part of the presentation. And unfortunately, this thing's not working either, even though I got brand new batteries for it. Okay, it is what it is. Yeah.
So yes, great to meet you guys all. And really the focus of this portion of the conversation is around sort of our journey around the shift to more asynchronous.
Yep.
Here's sort of the overview here, which I think you saw a little bit about. I'll talk a little bit about some of the video-based modules that we are creating, how we're sort of creating and also teaching those thinking that to create their own as well, and when and why we make those decisions. Move to cases, from cases rather, to experiential learning, and the focus of that in our curriculum. As Mike mentioned, our Teaching Innovation Fund, I'll talk a little bit about that. And before we wrap up, a little information about the Foreo project that we're working on called the Babson Mindset Game. So, with that, let's jump in. So, my team, we're very fortunate to have a really great video studio within our campus. The video studio is complete with multiple cameras, teleprompter, green screen technology, and some amazingly skilled video editors. So we can bring people in. As Mike mentioned, we brought Mike in just recently, and we can bring faculty in to do video recordings of all kinds. We have been doing that in that studio for about 4 to 5 years now. We had a smaller studio before that for about 5 years, so we keep growing. When we started our first studio, I remember the conversation was, who's going to really do this? People aren't really going to come. Now we have a line out the door. Faculty want to get in there. They want to do more with the studio. They want to bring their students in. That's a little bit of a problem because of capacity and of our team. And that actually brings us to sort of point number 3, and a little bit of point number 2 is sort of that marriage of do it yourself versus us creating sort of a robust video. And one of the things that my team focuses a lot on is trying to outline and understand the needs of the faculty for a particular video as it relates to their course, and how long they're going to use this. Will this last a few semesters, or is this something that they're just going to have one semester and it's going to pass on? If it's going to be just one semester and then it'll have to be updated, we direct them to what we call our innovation pod, where they can do a lot of work on their own. So we sort of have three tiers. We have our video studio where we have everything in there, and we work with them on scripting, on storyboarding, and we work with instructional designers on that. Then we have the next tier down, which is our innovation pod, where they can go in and it's a one-touch button and they can record themselves, or they can jump on a Zoom or a WebEx, and they have a really nice dedicated room for that. And then the third tier is, of course, here are some tools that you can go and use and create on your own, in your own space. And so when we're creating content within our group, the ATI Center, we talk a lot about sort of this marriage of curated versus created. So in addition to the creation of the content that we're talking about, we also talk a lot about what can you curate, what can you get out there. The benefits of that, of course, is that you've got different perspectives. So if you can mix in a TEDx talk that might be out there on a similar topic, in addition to your own content, the students really, really are receptive to that because they're seeing additional voices that increases engagement. Tons of studies to show that. We see different voices. And it also allows the faculty to sort of speed up the process of the content in an asynchronous fashion. So really using the right resources at the right time and the right project is critical. So we have seen, as Mike mentioned, we've seen a tremendous movement from cases, and we really stated that Babson College teaches in the case-based method up until about probably somewhere in the 2018 range, a little pre-COVID. We started to move away from that, move towards an experiential learning curriculum. Most recently, our undergraduate programs actually now has a requirement that every undergraduate student has to have at least one designated experiential learning course. What does that really mean? Well, it can mean sort of the traditional, we're going to work with a company and we're going to go out and we're going to sort of consult with that company, but it doesn't have to mean that. It can also mean a whole host of different things. It can be field work. It can be going out into literally the field and doing research. It can be anything that you can think of that is really true experiential. It does have to go through a board, a committee, and that committee will say, yes, this is worthy of the experiential credential or not. But every single undergraduate student starting this past fall now has to have at least one, and most of them are taking multiple. In addition, we, as Mike mentioned too, we're using a lot more simulations within our curriculum. We have a enterprise solution with Harvard Business Publishing so that we have a full integration with our Canvas, an LTI integration with Canvas and Harvard Business Publishing. So the entire collection is really free and available to our students. The faculty, of course, curate that. But we don't have to sort of pick and choose based on cost. We don't have to sort of limit things because there might be additional costs associated. But we've seen some estimated statistics that I can present to you guys based on what we've seen over the last few years is the number of cases have dropped very, very dramatically. We're probably 30% over the last few years. HBR articles that are available through the
What's that?
catalog
Text-based cases.
have stayed steady, steady state, and are continuing to be used probably even more so, a small increase. And simulations have increased dramatically. We have about 20% of our faculty who use simulations regularly, and another 10% on top of that that are using it quite often. And that number has grown over the last few years, double. So this all kind of comes back to that experiential learning component. And it's truly about sort of the tangible. It's truly about getting out there and having the students do things. Part of that might be because I think we all can agree students don't love to read anymore. So, but it's more than that too. It's it lends itself better to online learning. It then lends itself better to group interactions. That's a huge part of this.
Absolutely.
So how can we get them out of their seats, get them into something that really resembles what it's like to be in the working world, whether that's a management class, a finance class, an entrepreneurship class, or anything else. Our Teaching Innovation Fund. We've had this fund for at least 15 years. I went back as far as 15 years. Before that, I couldn't find data, so it's at least 15 years. It's a small grant for our faculty. And it's about $5,000 to $7,500. It's an application process. We just had a group of applicants that went through, and I'm part of the committee that sort of helps decide if we're going to go forward with it or not. And we had about 15 applicants this past semester, and 5 of them went through, and 10 of them sort of said, "We need a little more work on this." All 5 of them were multimedia based, or apps, or something along those lines where it was much more tangible. Simulation style, light simulation. This has changed dramatically as well. The original intent of the Teaching Innovation Fund was for case writing.
Right.
That moved completely 180 degrees.
And can you just distinguish between a light case and a normal or heavy case? How is there a hard and fast way to think about how to parse that?
Light case or simulation?
Light simulation. I'm sorry, light simulation.
Yeah, so light simulation would be a little less tech. It might be more paper-based, might be utilizing Excel, something along those lines, if not programmed. We have a lot of faculty who are developing things like that. We love those because they end up actually being great proofs of concept, like a proof of concept for something much bigger that we can work with. We have a faculty member who's doing a simulation that's very zero tech, and it's all about Legos. Another one who use M&Ms. And these are operations courses, and they're bringing the people together to do things and not just build build a battleship with your Legos, but to figure out how to assemble, figure out how to put it through an operations sort of assembly line and so forth.
Cool.
And then there's an accounting component to that as well, because there's a value based on each different kind of Lego and color of the different Legos. And so now we're in conversation, and I'll get to this mindset game in a second, but we're in conversation with Foreo to see if we can transform that Lego-based simulation into an online version of that with all of the same concepts. Foreo has been a really great partner with us. And as Mike mentioned, they're the creators of Food Truck Challenge and the Everest and so forth. And we are really excited to be working with them. We've been working with them for about 1.5 years. And it's quite a big undertaking. And we are proud to say that our first game is ready to launch. It's called the Babson Mindset Game. This is a game that was really authored by Professor Heidi Neck of our entrepreneurship division. She has written a number of books, has a tremendously great background on failure. And she's not afraid for me to say that. She focuses quite a bit on the benefits of failure and through that process. And more recently has really done a lot of work around this concept of the entrepreneurial mindset. And this I'm not going to call it a simulation, it's really a game. I'll talk about that in a moment. But this game is really centered around the difference between a managerial mindset and an entrepreneurial mindset. And it can be done as a group or it can be done individually. It can be done as a hybrid sort of setup or fully online, because everything is online. And the core of it is really 2 individual challenges that the learners are put into. One of them is a puzzle base, and the other one is more of a collaborative sort of storytelling in a visual format. That's as much as I'm allowed to. We're really excited about it. If you want to learn more about it, you can email our Babson Academy. So in addition to Heidi, our dean of our Babson Academy, his name is Amir Reza, has been a really great champion of this product and this launch. And so we're really excited about this because it really showcases that whole process of, okay, we had something that used to be on paper, literally paper and pencil. And it was great and it's very well received, but it's only available and accessible in a room like this where we're all together. As soon as you try to extend it beyond, and executive ed is a huge area where that's growing, it's really hard to do the simulation. But now we'll be able to do that in an online game. And again, I'm intermixing the word game and simulation. And we really are trying, and I'm trying to teach myself to call this a game and not a simulation. The way we see the key difference in this is they both have a lot of overlap in that there's gamification, there's competition, there's sort of ranking, there's sort of
Yeah.
the winner, if you will, or my group's the winner, if you will, and that all is included in a lot of simulations and certainly included in this game. The key difference that we see is that whereas a simulation like food truck would walk you through sort of a set process that would simulate like in food truck where you're selling something tangible and be a little more somewhat realistic. This is much more obscure and much more of a the idea is really let's go in there and have some fun and surprise surprise you're actually learning this entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah. And you may want to say it's in beta right now?
It is in beta, thank you. Yeah, it's in beta right now. We are really towards the tail end of the beta, so we've ironed out a lot of kinks, and we're excited about sort of bringing it out forward to others. It is not ready for distribution quite yet. I actually had hoped that we would be by now, but legal takes way longer than anyone ever expected.
And this was the first time that this has been shared outside of the four walls of Babson.
It is.
So it's kind of a bit of a public debut.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what does all this mean? So as it relates to all the topics that Mike brought up and educational technology. So one of the things that my group really spends a lot of time with and something that I think is extremely important is making sure that our faculty know what resources they have at hand. So in the case of Babson, the resources are our instructional designers, the resources are instructional technologists. They're also the tools that they have as well. And so we spend a lot of time ensuring that that tool set that we have for our faculty is up to date, is benchmarked, and it is the correct tool set for them, whether that's a do-it-yourself type video creation tool, our learning management system, or a collaboration tool, or a simulation or a game. I mentioned the curating versus create, really another important piece of this, and that actually can help with a lot of cost. And then knowing the technology. This is something, Mike and I were talking about it over lunch too, and my group we have instructional designers and they all come to the table and they say, we've got to look at the learning outcomes and the pedagogy first, and all of the technology will follow. And then our instructional technologists will say, yeah, that's true. However, if no one knows what those technologies are, then we might miss some opportunities. And so that's where we love to see the marriage of the two, the instructional designers and instructional technologists together. Because understanding what those technologies are and understanding what is available to you could actually reshape how you look at and how you perceive what your learning goals.
Creative.
Change your learning goal.
Yeah.
But it might change the direction of which you take that learning goal.
Yep.
And lastly, AI. So we're just scratching the surface as it relates to sort of a lot of the video-based and multimedia creation, but it's getting better and better. We've been using AI to help generate a lot of our scripts. So we'll write a draft of the script, put it through AI to sort of see where and how it could be improved, where and how we could sort of take questions from that. A lot of the content that we're creating for asynchronous modules includes sort of summative assessments, and some of those summative assessments are created with help from our AI, generative AI agents. There's just so much more that we can do with that. And the exciting part about that is that a lot of these things that we're doing are fairly costly, but that cost is getting driven down more and more with the help of technology, ed tech, with the help of AI in particular.
Great job, Eric. Thank you. If you want to ask Eric some questions now, because Nasser has to set up, so it might be a good time to use a few extra seconds here to do that. Yeah.
We're not
Yeah,
sure
you
yet.
bet.
Yeah, so we are, that is part of the conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah, I get that.
We are
Thanks.
hoping to distribute it through directing through Oreo, but also through Harvard Business Publishing. Yeah, we're working on that partnership right now.
Yeah.
So in terms of the exact cost of that, it's to be determined. There are some rough outlines of what the cost would be. So I know that if you are interested in learning more, the Academy of Business.
Just a follow-up question on that, the $5,000 to $7,000 for them, is that for them to develop a sim, or is that for them to use the sim in their class, or what's that?
It's typically for development.
Yeah.
So it is for development, whether that's specifically to a sim or a game or some kind of approach.
Right.
In certain circumstances, a lot of that funding could go towards teaching them as well. So they might be developing something very simple that doesn't have a lot of costs associated with it, but they have to take a trip to plant factory and record it, and then some of those costs will be incurred, and that's where that grant money will go to.
A longer conversation on this will be, how do you manage all that information coming at you from all these people who are doing this research? That sounds really exciting, but it's also like, whoa, what are we going to do with everything that everyone's
Yeah, it's a challenge, large trouble.
Fair enough.
Nasser, go for it.
That also includes the cost for development by IT team.
That's usually our development is free,
Okay.
so it's part of the service of the college.
Okay.
So yeah, so that would come with it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's great to have everyone here. I asked this question about the cost deliberately because at the end of my talk, I'm going to ask you the case I have developed for my position cost, because that's unbelievable to me in the beginning. I mean, after the life developing that case. So I'm here to cut you off the speed dial with IT.
Mhm.
That's my motto. And I have suffered and lived through it because I switched from biotechnology. I've been teaching in biotechnology for more than 50 years.
That was awesome. Thank you.
And there in life sciences, we always talk with tools. So I teach a theory, we have a PCR machine, we have another experiment, and then we demonstrate, and students have a lot to play with, and then it makes sense to them. They are able to connect the theory with practice. And when I switched to a business platform about 6 years ago, that is where I really struggled. I love this concept, I love teaching these concepts, but I found out, okay, there are cases, but students generally I do not deliberately use the word shorter attention span, they have a different attention span. That's more
And shorter.
And so they're different attention spans. They don't really like to pay attention on something which is written on a piece of paper. So they are more geared towards gamification, interactive, online, on something like Instagram or TikTok. So that made me to research more on, okay, so how can I potentially gamify or create a multimedia or interactive version of my case? Okay. I looked around, IT was not on speed dial, of course, and they're very expensive, even if we outsource it was very expensive. Just about last year, I discovered, it was a discovery for me, that there are, of course, online editing tools, templates available like Canva or Figma. They're not too old, but still about 2-3 years old. They kept on developing those capabilities. So today, I'm going to, with that's my case. I'm here to build a case that, yes, building multimedia cases is not rocket science anymore, and it's not that expensive. And for that, I'm going to walk you through first. A scale I'm still trying to develop is about the use of technology in developing cases. And then I'll walk you through the process that we employ to build that, create that, produce that multimedia case. And then I'll show you the multimedia case that I have developed, and I'll also show you one that has been developed by Harvard in 2023. And so starting off, and then at the end, I will show you the cost, how much it costs us to do that. So starting with the use of technology in cases. So traditionally, since 1921, when the first text-based case was published, now we see, okay, what do we use? We use MS Word most of the time, Excel, PowerPoint. So that's the most tools of technology that we have in developing text-based cases. So as we increase the level of technological use, there is somewhere in the middle we have multimedia cases, because multimedia cases, essentially they are the website. They could be an app as well, do it in an app way. So it's an online experience that we try to create, and that experience contains what? Audiovisual content, interactive timelines, quizzes, we get decision trees, a little bit of gamification, practical exercises, and real-time feedback against the question that you may incorporate within those multimedia cases. And even until now, I mean, the level of sophistication that we want to achieve is very expensive. We need to have an IT department. We need to have at least a few developers, testers, and the whole this suite of IT team to develop those multimedia cases. Okay? And this is what the impression I got after talking to people, and all of them are like, we would love to have something like that, but it's very expensive and it takes a lot of time. So again, this is where I will elaborate further in the coming slide. Then we have simulations, which are mostly based on modeling. So there's more mathematics involved. There's more sophistication of technology involved into that. And again, with the help of large language models, we're getting closer. We are not that close, but we are getting closer to developing those simulations, which are so intelligent, brought upon by those large language models, but still it is expensive when we consider the cost. And now, talking about the process, so essentially what I could figure out, there is a 4-step process to develop a multimedia case. So first, you need to conceptualize, right? So if the case that you already have written or to already have published, could developing a multimedia version makes it better and more compelling for the students to achieve the learning outcomes that you intend to achieve. And so for conceptualization, there are various databases. You can go through Harvard multimedia cases, i.e. Business School in Madrid is really good on producing those multimedia cases, and a couple of more out there. IB publishing as well. So once you conceptualize, the next is to define the structure, right? So for defining the structure, most of the time we use the term wireframing or a little bit of prototyping. So what you need to do, you need to figure out that what are the essential components of a multimedia case. So infographics, interactive exercises, different flow charts like I explained in the previous slide. So what is it that you want to see in your case that relates more with the content that you are write? And then you also need to decide where are you going to host the case, because there are third-party publishers, there are third-party platforms available where you can host the case. But today the convention is, if wherever you are, whichever business school you are in, most of the times that business school lends out the domain to you because it belongs to them intellectually, in terms of IP. And then comes the production. For production, of course, this is where I'm going to focus more on, is there are various platforms available like Canva, Figma, and a few more. And those platforms are quite automated when it comes to using different tools to create these infographics or all the essential components of the multimedia case that you want to bring into your case. And when you are in that step, you also need to define the navigation. So how should the flow of the case? How should the students interact with it? Should they be allowed to go back and forth, or should they just finish it first and then they go back? Because of course that also there's a lot of research on that, because how to achieve those learning outcomes. So you identify the navigation and what to do with quality control. And then at the end, what you do is you test it. For testing, it's the same classical model. You test it in your classroom, you test it in your focus group with your colleagues. And also you, while testing, in this case, you need to test the user interface and user experience. Like sometimes it could be the case that the case is very compelling. It's really cool, but the user experience is not that up to the standard compared to, as much as which is like your students. So that afterwards we can think about the release, and release involves, of course, the intellectual IP consideration, and also where are you going to post it. For example, Case Center in UK, there you can publish multimedia cases as well. and you can get in touch with them. I mean, I'm also trying to figure this process out, but as much as I could read from their website, that it is possible that you could publish your multimedia case on the case center as well. So there are very few, but there are still some of the publishers available. And for the infrastructure and the development cost, of course, I will get back to it after I show you the example. And then at the end of it, I just want to emphasize that, look, we are educators, and we need to understand there is hype, like Gartner, there's hype cycles. Of course, those cycles are based on the sentiment in the market, and there's reality. Okay, generative AI, of course, is miraculous, right? I love using it. I love it. Like I use it in my classroom as well. But we need to figure out. We need to distinguish between which technology is applicable where. So were we living in the Stone Age before generative AI? Not at all. So the tool I use has only two applications of Gen AI. Either you could create image, like from ChatGPT, or you could create some text. All other 99% of the functionality is based on the classic programming. They use a bunch of different programming languages, and then those languages have become so sophisticated to this date that we could use them, employ them to create this kind of case that I'm going to show you. Okay, so that's something I wanted to distinguish. So these are the screenshots of the case that I have built. So you could see there are videos, there are graphs, there are different timelines. So everything is created using this platform panel. Okay. And now I would like to take you.
We sit with it and watch on
Walk through the
it. Why not?
So this is the case, and he's my undergrad student, and he has developed it in about 30 hours. Again, I mean, over a period of about 2 months. And we have deliberately put this video up because this is where I interviewed him, that how difficult was it? Because my intuition was that these platforms are so intuitive that, okay, I, as an academic, have issue with time. I don't have that much time available. Then I asked him, and he took about 2 weeks to just go through it. And then he said, give me the job. What is it that you want to do? Okay. And then I explained to him the case. He knew, okay, it is about Twitter. So then he gave the idea, okay, we need to make it like a Twitter homepage. And then the case would flow. So that comes as user experience. He is not bachelor in IT, he is bachelor in management in the final year. Okay? So I think the video will take longer if I play it. I just quickly want to walk you through the case. So you keep moving forward. We have the tweets from Elon Musk. We have tweets from Linda Yaccarino. And this is where we use Canva's Gen AI plugin to create this image. I mean, we could throw it out. There are issues by the editors in case. So then you move forward. Timeline, classic exhibits that we use in the text-based cases. Then again, there are codes and there are videos. So we are allowed to use these videos under Creative Commons license. So the video is integrated here just for the sake of. So
to the office, a message comes in from your boss. Can you?
So the students could play the video. Again, they would have to read. Dara Khosrowshahi, one of his code. And you move forward, different portfolio. This is a real case that I have developed, and I would like to publish it later, but here I'm demonstrating it.
Is it being used by students today? Are you using it in classes today?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I am using it from the last. I mean, there was different levels of sophistication. In the beginning, it was simply everything put online. I used it. Still, the response was better than using a text-based case.
Yep.
Because what I saw, they were reading on a mobile phone. Half of them had their devices, iPads, and they were like really engrossed into it because this is a virtual space where they relate most of the times compared to.
Yeah.
The videos, are these sourced from the internet, or are they your students role playing on the video? Or what?
So this is where, I mean, look, while creating an example, this is not published, okay? Most of the times in multimedia cases, you will find that the authors, they will record a video to just welcome you to the case and walk you through the experience, and then they will let you do it. Depending upon the type of the case, there could be interviews that you could choose. I mean, I have seen those cases. There could be already published videos that you could choose for academic purposes, so which is allowed to do even if you publish it, if you properly cite it. So it could work, both ways. Then, okay, here the case ends. There are quotes from, about geopolitics. Again, some exhibits integrated within the case, within the experience. And so this is where it ends, and then there are references. So everything, citation, everything.
How long would you expect an undergrad student to take to go through the case? Is there a rough time estimate of?
For this one?
Yeah.
This one, I would say they need about 20 to 25 minutes.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
But then again, that is something that, look, we need to figure out the exact time.
Okay.
This one takes about 20.
Yeah. Even with all of the multimedia content, even if they watch the videos. Yeah. Okay.
The videos are not long.
Okay.
2-3 minutes, because there again, you don't want to include your 1 hour lecture as a video in your multimedia case. That's against the very principle that we are trying to employ over there. We tend to do that, but please don't do that. So references, okay. And here is an example of Moderna case that Harvard Business Publishing, they published it, and I think we have huge respect for what they do. And you will see in the credits, they have massive team developing these multimedia experiences. And now all I'm emphasizing is the decentralizing part of technology. Okay. So I felt a need, and it really bothered me. Took me a few years, but I'm still very happy that I was able to do it, because now I can, even make it better over the years. So if I just walk you through the Moderna case, there are quotes, like I did, all the essential components that I explained in the beginning, which usually are part of the multimedia online learning experiences. And this is, so they use a different way to integrate the video. We could also do that. This is how they wanted to create their user experience. Right, and exhibits, they do exhibits this way. You could you could paste them, or you could also do that. These are very easy functionalities that you could bring in, and so on. So it just flows like that.
Yeah, and their multimedia cases haven't evolved that much in the last 10 years. Because even though this is new, it looks very much.
PSP, you will find about 7 multimedia cases compared to 30,000 text-based cases.
Yeah.
Okay, but again.
But the form factor's been the same for a long time. Yeah.
I think I'd comment on that, in that there's a lot of accessibility issues that go into creating this kind of content. So like the reason they have the long scroll is because that can be picked up on screen readers better. Or with the video, you need to have a transcript. Because in the US, if you are putting out content to your students that isn't accessible to all students, you're financially on the hook for that.
Yep.
So there are some caveats into creating this kind of content, and to proceed carefully with that. I'm sure Babson, with what you've been creating, you've wrestled with that as well. So it's a tough thing, because the cool bells and whistles and things you can find in TikTok, you can't really incorporate that entirely into curriculum materials because of these kind of guidelines.
But from the development perspective, again, it's an evolving process, and how big that could be, how big a deal that could be compared to creating this kind of case, I think that could be figured out. When it comes to publishing them, of course, you need to be careful about that.
Yeah, and we are just about out of time, so you might want to.
So just this final slide, I wanted to ask you about this. So what do you think, how much could be the development cost? I'm sorry for the fonts, it was created on Canva. Just make a guess.
Yeah.
2,000, 4,000, 100, 200, 300, what?
I don't think you spent anything.
I spent what? Anything?
0.
Well, that's...
Not that good.
They don't pay European professors that badly, okay? That's right.
I gave an idea about 7,000, 8,000 for the simulation, but that doesn't actually include the development cost. That's more or less a logistical cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you briefly just list what technologies you use to create this? That might help us think about it.
So I use one platform. Let me just take it away.
Yeah.
I use Canva. Yeah. And this is where you see the estimates.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, now it's good. So Canva annual subscription costs about $109 for 12 months.
Mhm.
Then I had that research associate. Again, I mean, it could be different. I think for his 30 hours, make it 50 hours, don't cost more than 500 to 600 euros. Or
$10 an hour. $10 an hour.
I mean, it's $12 an hour. That's that minimal wage.
No minimum wage, huh? No.
But again, it's money, there's no problem.
Yeah.
We are not comparing.
I thought you were a socialist, man. I thought you'd be $50 an hour. No?
But as Olaf shows about that.
Yeah.
So it's about, in total, my estimate is, let's
Yeah.
say, about 600 to 700 bucks.
Yeah.
This is nothing. Okay. And if you have a dedicated team, a dedicated research associate, it could even go further down.
Yeah.
And the point I wanted to make, we have huge, massive respect for the established media houses or
Yeah.
publishers, what they are doing. But now, again, this is a decentralization of education as well.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to advocate, we need to go along with these initiatives as well because it increases the outreach.
Yeah.
Because not every business school, I would say most of the business schools do not really have
Yeah.
the
Babson.
luxury of
Yeah, right.
these IT.
Yeah. You bet.
Only a few.
Yeah.
You could see, I mean, if there were too many, then there could have been more and more simulation than
Yeah. And what you didn't even include, right, which will only help, right? And I'm sure most of you have at least heard of Sora, right? So Sora is a AI text to high quality video tool. Tyler Perry, who runs one of the most sophisticated studios in all of Hollywood, got a look at Sora in a 20-minute demo and basically called his production team and says, we were about to invest $800 million in expansion of the studio. Stop the presses. Now, they haven't released it because of the pending presidential election. But at some point very soon, and it continues to advance, there's 3 or 4 image-to-video tools that create stunningly professional, highly produced video.
What's the name?
Sora. Sora is one from OpenAI. Alibaba has put out a tool as well. And
Just
yeah,
to
Yeah.
make my point.
yeah,
This case does not have any elements of generative AI except
Right.
for those images.
Yeah.
That we
Right.
can simply delete. My point is,
Yeah.
of course, generative AI, Sora, those tools are very promising, but we are playing with the boundaries. We are playing with the regulations. What if a different regulation comes out after I publish this case somewhere? So to play safe, how about going along with the technology that has already been developed, tested and developed? Okay, so that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yep. Yep. And your regulatory issues will be different than ours for sure.
This question is going to be kind of dovetailing on what
Yeah.
you said, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. He was saying that in the last 10 years or so, or 15 years, Harvard hasn't really done much else with multimedia.
Well, it just the form factor hasn't changed very much. It still kind of looks the same as it did 15 years ago. Yeah.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
I remember back in the CD-ROM days.
Yeah.
To me. But thinking about you, now that you've gone through this process, I know very well about the creative process of going through something, building something, and then now you have a lot more insight. What would you do next? Like, what would you do differently on your next one that you're going to build?
So what I'm going to do, again, being an academic, I'm not running a company.
Right.
I am working to develop a multimedia case training workshop, and I want to enable my colleagues as much as possible. And then I'm also in touch with Emerald, and I hope it works out, to come up with a special issue on multimedia cases. So that would be my natural course. And if I bring the same case to you, I can promise you after 6 months, the user experience will be even better.
Sure.
Because we did it alongside teaching and doing our day job.
Mhm.
I was not required to do it.
Right.
Okay? And I'm sure the user experience, I think I shared the link with you in the past. That one was just a white, board on the website, and everything was pasted over there. And development trajectory, the sophistication level has improved massively. So this is what I expect moving forward. To create a use case, use it as a training material for my colleagues everywhere. Train them, bring them along, enable them, and then have these cases published as much as possible.
That's great.
So, outreach.
Yeah.
Everybody will be inspired by our
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's some synergies that develop and
Yeah.
some acceleration that happens.
Yeah.
So let's call it open source. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it open source.
Yeah.
If you make it better, I'll leave it.
Creative Commons model. Yeah. Great job. All right. Thank you.
Any further questions? He's the moderator.
No, I think at this point, we have extended by 5 minutes, so I want to be respectful of people's time. Are there any last questions for the three of us before we wrap this up? No? All good? Thank you. Thanks for being so engaged. Yeah.
Free to reach out.
Yeah.
Thank you.